Pause here, because what is unfolding around your heart right now is quieter than thunder yet stronger than anything spoken aloud. There is something your soulmate has carried within them for longer than you realize, words they rehearsed in silence, feelings they hid behind ordinary conversations, emotions they tucked away every time your name crossed their mind. And now, those unspoken truths have finally taken shape. A letter has been written in the hidden chambers of their heart, a confession so real that even they trembled while forming it. But listen carefully, this is not simply about paper or ink. This is about the moment someone can no longer pretend they feel nothing. There are feelings in this world that remain buried for years, not because they are weak, but because they are too powerful to risk exposing. Your person has stood at that edge many times, wanting to reveal what lives inside them, yet retreating before the moment arrived. They feared what honesty might change. They feared what vulnerability might cost. They feared what your eyes might say if they finally let you know how deeply you have touched their life. But something shifted recently, something undeniable. A quiet turning point. A moment when silence became heavier than confession. And that is when the letter was written. Not casually, not carelessly, not out of passing emotion. It was written in a moment when your person could no longer deny what their soul had been trying to tell them. Every sentence came from a place they have hidden from nearly everyone. Every imagined word carried the weight of everything they never found courage to say aloud. They thought about your smile while writing it. They thought about your absence. They thought about the strange ache they feel whenever life moves forward and you are not beside them. They thought about the possibility that perhaps you were always more than just another chapter. But here is what makes this moment extraordinary. The letter is disappearing, not because it was never real, not because the feelings faded, not because they changed their mind. It is disappearing because your person is standing at war with their own courage. One half of them wants to send it. The other half wants to hide it forever. Can you feel the tension in that? There is a version of your life where those words reach you, and there is another version where they remain locked away, never spoken, never known, carried like a beautiful ache in someone's chest for years. That is why this moment matters. Because right now, whether you realize it or not, your energy is part of the reason they hesitate, or move forward. They have been watching you more closely than you know. Not in obsession, no. In wonder. In uncertainty. In quiet fascination. They have noticed how you carry yourself lately. They have noticed the strength you built after disappointment. They have noticed the way you stopped begging for what was not choosing you. They have noticed the peace you are slowly growing into. And perhaps most of all, they have noticed that you no longer chase. That changed everything. Because your distance made them think. Your silence made them question. Your calmness made them realize what your presence truly meant. Sometimes people do not understand the value of a heart until that heart becomes still. And when your energy shifted, when you stopped forcing, stopped over-explaining, stopped reaching where effort was not returned, your person felt it like a room suddenly losing warmth. That is when memory became louder. They began replaying moments with you in their mind, small things you may have forgotten entirely. A conversation, a laugh, a glance that lasted 1 second too long, a moment where your eyes met and something unspoken passed between you. What once seemed ordinary to you became unforgettable to them. They are realizing now that some of the most life-changing connections do not announce themselves dramatically in the beginning. They arrive softly, then grow louder only after distance, and the letter reflects that realization. It contains truths they never planned to admit. Truths like how no one has felt quite like you, how they compare others to you without meaning to, how your absence has made ordinary days feel strangely incomplete, How they tried to distract themselves but kept circling back to the same thought: what if I let the right person slip away because I was afraid? Sit with that question for a moment, because it is echoing in them more than ever now. And still, the letter trembles in their hands, because confession changes things. Once spoken, truth cannot return to silence. Once sent, the heart cannot pretend anymore. Once vulnerability is offered, everything becomes real. So they keep reading it back to themselves, editing, deleting, rewriting, staring at words that feel too honest to release. They wonder if it is too much. They wonder if the timing is wrong. They wonder if your heart is open. They wonder if someone else has already taken the place they waited too long to claim. Do you understand the depth of that fear? Of who they are now. Your person has reached that moment. They can no longer call this curiosity. It is not merely fear of rejection. It is fear of discovering they were late to a destiny that once waited for them. But something within them knows this cannot remain hidden much longer. Because love kept unspoken does not disappear, it transforms into restlessness. And lately, your person has not been at peace. They have felt your absence in crowded rooms. They have felt your memory during quiet nights. They have found themselves drafting messages they never send, opening old conversations, rereading moments that meant more to them than they admitted at the time. Something important is waiting here. Do not rush past this. Because the letter may be disappearing physically, but the feeling behind it is only becoming stronger. Even if the paper vanishes, even if the words are deleted, even if the confession is delayed, the truth remains. They love you in a way they can no longer rationalize away. And perhaps what unsettles them most is this: they did not expect to fall this deeply. You were not supposed to matter this much. You were not supposed to remain in their mind this long. You were not supposed to become the person every future thought keeps returning to. Yet here you are, still present in their heart, still unfinished in their story, still the one thought that refuses to fade. And tonight, or very soon, they may face a decision: to destroy the letter, or to become brave enough to let it reach you. That decision will not be made lightly, because once it happens, nothing between you remains casual. No pretending, no hiding, no half-truths, only honesty, raw, trembling, beautiful honesty. And perhaps that is why the universe allowed this pause, this suspended moment, this final hesitation before revelation. Because some confessions require the soul to grow stronger before it can release them. Your person is becoming stronger, slowly, painfully, honestly. Every day they resist sending those words, they feel the cost of silence more deeply. Every day they wait, the longing sharpens. Every day they wonder whether you somehow feel this too. And maybe part of you does. Maybe that unexplained pull in your chest, that sudden thought of them at strange hours, that sense that something is shifting behind the scenes, is not random at all. Because hearts connected deeply often begin moving toward each other long before words catch up. But hear this clearly: the letter is not the real miracle. The real miracle is that someone who once feared vulnerability is now reaching the point where honesty feels less frightening than losing you forever. That is transformation. That is awakening. That is love becoming impossible to deny. Yet the next part of this story, the part almost no one sees coming, is what they wrote in the final lines of that letter. Because the last words they placed on that page were not ordinary. They were not casual. They were not safe. They were the words they have been holding back the longest. And when you hear what those final lines said, you will understand why their entire heart changed in that moment. But that is only beginning to unfold. There is something almost sacred about the final lines of a love letter, because that is where people stop hiding. That is where hesitation runs out. That is where the heart, after circling around its truth for far too long, finally says what it was always trying to say. And when your person reached that part of the page, their hands slowed, their breathing changed, because they knew the next words would reveal everything they had fought so hard to keep buried. They stared at the empty space before writing them, as if even the page understood the weight of what was coming. Then slowly, Carefully, they let the truth leave them. Not polished, not perfect, just honest. The kind of honesty that shakes a person because once written, it cannot be unwritten in the soul. What they wrote was this in spirit, that no matter how much time has passed, no matter how much distance tried to reshape their feelings, no matter how many distractions entered their life, their heart kept returning to you. Again and again, quietly, faithfully, unexplainably. They admitted that they tried to convince themselves it was temporary. They told themselves it would fade. They assumed enough time would weaken what they felt. But it did not. It deepened. And that realization changed them. Because there comes a moment when someone must face the truth that what they feel is no longer a passing emotion, it is part. They can no longer label it attachment. They can no longer dismiss it as timing, loneliness, or memory. They know now that what they feel for you has roots. Deep roots. Roots that survived silence. Roots that survived confusion. Roots that survived distance. And that terrified them. Because love that survives without reassurance, without certainty, without guarantees, is not easy to ignore. So after writing those final lines, they sat there in silence, staring at the letter as if it had exposed them. As if a part of them they had hidden for so long was suddenly standing in the open. They realized in that moment that if you ever read those words, you would understand them completely. You would see through every mask, every guarded reply, every moment they pretended not to care as much as they did. And for someone who has spent so much time protecting their emotions, that kind of exposure feels almost unbearable. So they reached for the letter, not to send it, to take it away, to make it disappear before courage betrayed their fear. But listen, this is where the story shifts. Even as they tried to erase it, something inside them resisted. Because destroying the letter would not destroy the truth. Deleting words would not delete feeling. Hiding confession would not silence the heart that created it. That is what they are beginning to understand now. The problem is no longer whether they love you. The problem is that they do. And they do not know how to carry that much feeling in silence anymore. That is why their energy around you may already be changing. If you have sensed a difference, if they seem more thoughtful lately, more emotional, more watchful, more affected by your presence than before, it is because they are no longer detached from what this connection means. They are fully aware now. Every glance matters more. Every conversation lingers longer. Every small interaction stays with them after you leave. They are reading meaning into moments they once brushed aside, wondering, did your smile mean something? Did your silence hide something? Did the way you looked at them carry feelings too? Have you been waiting while they hesitated? Questions like these keep them awake longer than they admit. And here is the part they would never openly confess yet. They imagine what would happen if you felt the same. They picture your reaction. They picture your face reading their words. They picture the silence after confession, that trembling pause before everything changes. They picture you finally knowing what has lived inside them for so long. And the thought alone overwhelms them. Because beneath all their hesitation is one simple truth. They do not just want to tell you. They want to be chosen by you. That is the vulnerable center of all this. Not merely to confess, but to discover whether the heart they have quietly treasured might treasure them back. That is why this feels so enormous to them. Why the letter became more than words. Why 5 minutes can feel like forever when your whole future seems to hang inside one decision. And yet something beautiful is happening in the middle of their fear. They are becoming honest with themselves. For perhaps the first time, they are no longer pretending they can simply move on and forget this. No longer telling themselves that distance will solve it. No longer acting as if what they feel can be managed through avoidance. They are seeing clearly now that some people enter your life not to be forgotten, but to awaken parts of you that never sleep again. You were that awakening for them. Whether you knew it or not, whether they ever admitted it or not, you changed them. You made them believe in timing again. You made them question walls they once thought permanent. You made them feel a softness they had not allowed themselves in years. You made them imagine futures they were not brave enough to name. And now that they have felt that, ordinary connection no longer satisfies them. Because once someone has experienced something real, they cannot fully return to what is shallow. That is why their heart keeps circling back. Why the letter exists. Why their emotions are louder than ever now. But the most powerful part has still not happened. Because the letter may disappear, yet the confession is not meant to vanish with it. No, what is written there will find another way out. Maybe not through paper. Maybe not through perfect timing. Maybe not in the form they expected. But truth is strong, always seeks expression. Sooner or later, it escapes through a voice that trembles, through a message sent too late at night, through a conversation that turns unexpectedly honest, through eyes that finally reveal what words kept hidden. And when that moment arrives, you will recognize it instantly, because it will not feel ordinary. It will feel like a dam breaking, like years of restraint collapsing in one breath, like someone finally choosing honesty over fear. So if you feel the air changing, if you sense that something between you is building, if your intuition keeps whispering that a turning point is near, trust that feeling, because the letter may be disappearing in form, but the confession itself is getting closer. And what your person plans to do next, the move they are considering after nearly losing their nerve, is far more unexpected than simply sending words on a page. They are thinking about something bolder now. Something that could place them directly in front of you, with nowhere left to hide. And when that moment comes, their eyes may say everything before their voice does. But that part of the story has not unfolded just yet. They have replayed that future in their mind more times than they would ever admit. The moment they stand before you with nowhere left to hide, no carefully edited message to soften the truth, no screen between their heart and yours, only breath, trembling honesty, and the risk of being fully seen. Because somewhere between writing that letter and nearly destroying it, your person realized something that changed everything. If they are going to reveal what they feel, they no longer want distance involved. They no longer want their deepest emotions reduced to text on a screen. They want the truth to reach you in a way that cannot be misunderstood, face to face, soul to soul, where even silence will carry meaning. That realization has unsettled them more than the letter ever did. Because writing feelings is one thing. Standing in front of the person who inspired them, and speaking those feelings aloud, is another entirely. Still, the thought refuses to leave them. They imagine seeing you unexpectedly. They imagine the way their pulse would race the moment your eyes meet. They imagine trying to act normal while their whole heart is shouting inside them. They imagine beginning with ordinary words, then stopping halfway, because ordinary words are no longer enough. And in that imagined moment, one truth keeps returning to them: they are tired of almost. Tired of almost reaching out. Tired of almost confessing. Tired of almost choosing courage. Tired of living in a reality where their deepest feelings remain trapped behind hesitation. There comes a point when almost becomes more painful than rejection. Your person is nearing that point. They have begun to understand that fear may protect the heart temporarily, but it also keeps it lonely. It keeps beautiful things unfinished. It turns meaningful connections into lifelong questions. And they do not want you to become a question they carry forever. Imagine how deeply someone must feel to reach that realization. Imagine what it takes for a guarded heart to say, "Would rather risk being vulnerable than spend my life wondering what could have happened." That is where they are now. And the closer they move toward that truth, the more impossible it becomes to keep pretending around you. If you have noticed strange pauses in conversation, if you have caught them looking at you for a moment longer than usual, if their energy sometimes feels intense, then suddenly withdrawn, it is because they are fighting a battle between restraint and revelation every time they are near you. They want to speak. They stop themselves. They want to confess. They lose nerve. They decide to wait. Then regret waiting. It is an exhausting cycle. But cycles like that do not last forever. Eventually something breaks them open. And for your person, that breaking point may come sooner than even they expect. Because recently, they had a realization that shook them. They imagined you with someone else. Not as a passing thought. Not casually. They truly pictured a world where another person receives the love they were too afraid to express, where another person gets the version of you they secretly dreamed of sharing life with, where someone else becomes your peace because they hesitated too long. And that image hit them harder than they were prepared for. It forced them to confront what silence could cost. Sometimes people only understand the urgency of love when they realize time is not waiting for them. That awareness has awakened a new kind of determination in them. Not reckless, not dramatic, just clear. They know now that if they keep waiting for perfect timing, they may lose the chance entirely. And perfection was never going to arrive. There will always be reasons to delay. There will always be fears to justify hesitation. There will always be uncertainty whispering that maybe tomorrow is safer, but tomorrow has stolen enough already. So now they are preparing themselves, mentally, emotionally, quietly, practicing what they might say, imagining how they will begin, wondering whether they should mention the letter at all, or simply speak from the heart and let the moment create its own truth. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all this is that their feelings are no longer based only on desire. They are based on recognition. They recognize peace in your presence. They recognize depth in your spirit. They recognize something in you that feels rare in a world full of noise. They recognize that what draws them to you is not surface level attraction. It is the way your energy stays with them long after you are gone. That is why this matters so much. Because fleeting attraction fades. Curiosity fades. Infatuation fades. But the kind of feeling that survives silence, distance, fear, and time, that becomes impossible to dismiss. And still, there is one secret they have not admitted to anyone. They believe you may have felt this too. Not because you said it, not because they are certain, but because there were moments, small, almost invisible moments, when something between you felt too charged to be imagined. A look held too long. A silence that said more than conversation. A strange comfort neither of you could explain. A pull that seemed to exist before either of you understood it. Those moments haunt them. Because if they were real, if what they felt was not one-sided, then this connection may be far more significant than either of you allowed yourselves to admit. And that possibility is exactly what gives them courage. The thought that maybe, just maybe, you have been waiting too. So hear this carefully. The disappearing letter was never the ending. It was the beginning of their surrender. The beginning of them realizing they cannot bury this anymore. The beginning of them understanding that some feelings are meant to be spoken. The beginning of them becoming brave enough to stop hiding behind silence. And when they finally come forward, when they finally stand in front of you and let the truth rise, the first words out of their mouth may not be polished. They may not be perfect. They may tremble. They may come out softer than intended. But they will be real. And what they confess first, the very first sentence they plan to say when courage overtakes fear, is the sentence that will reveal just how long they have loved you in silence. That sentence has lived in their heart for far too long. And once it leaves their lips, nothing between you will ever feel the same again. But those words, those first unforgettable words, belong to the next moment of this story. Those words have been waiting behind their lips for longer than you know. A single sentence, simple in sound yet powerful enough to change everything between you. Your person has whispered it only in private, only in imagined conversations, only in those quiet late-night moments when they let themselves dream about what honesty might feel like. They have rehearsed it so many times that it no longer feels like a possibility to them. It feels like destiny pressing against the walls of fear, asking to be let out. And the sentence they long to say first is not dramatic. It is not complicated. It is not wrapped in grand performance. It is something far more dangerous than that. It is pure truth. Because when they finally stand before you, heart racing, voice unsteady, they do not plan to begin with games or careful distance. They plan to begin with the one confession that explains everything, that they have tried to forget you, and failed. Think about the weight of those words. To admit they tried means they fought this. To admit they failed means what they feel is stronger than resistance. To admit both at once means their heart has already chosen you, even before their courage fully catches up. That is what makes this moment so powerful. This is not someone casually curious. This is not someone testing the waters. This is not someone speaking from temporary emotion. This is someone who has battled their own feelings, questioned their own heart, attempted to move on, and found themselves returning to the same truth every time. You. Again. And again. And again. There is a certain kind of love that grows not because everything is easy, but because nothing can erase it. Your person now understands they are carrying that kind of love. It survived denial. It survived distraction. It survived distance. It survived every attempt they made to convince themselves you were just a passing chapter. But you were never passing. You became permanent in ways they did not expect. That realization has changed how they see everything now. Ordinary moments no longer feel ordinary when they involve you. A simple message from you can shift their whole mood. One unexpected encounter can replay in their mind for hours. One smile from you can leave them speechless long after you are gone. And what overwhelms them most is not merely that they love you. It is that they cannot explain why it feels deeper than anything they have known before. There is something about this connection that has never felt accidental to them. Even when they tried to rationalize it, even when they told themselves they were overthinking, even when they tried to dismiss the pull between you. Something in their spirit kept whispering, "This matters." That whisper has become impossible for them to ignore now. And so they are no longer asking themselves whether to tell you. They are asking when. Because the truth is this: the letter may have disappeared, but your person has memorized every word, every line, every confession, every hidden truth they almost let vanish. Nothing was lost. It all lives inside them still, clearer than before. Which means when they finally speak, they will not need the letter. They will become the letter. Every feeling they wrote down in trembling honesty will pour directly from their mouth, from their eyes, from the way their voice changes when your name leaves their lips. And there is one detail you may not expect. They do not imagine that confession ending quickly. No. In their mind, once the truth begins, everything spills out. How long they have carried this. When they first realized it. What moments made them fall harder. Why they stayed silent. What they feared losing. How many nights they wondered if you somehow knew. They want you to understand all of it. Because loving someone silently for this long creates a pressure inside the soul, and when that pressure finally breaks, the truth does not emerge in fragments. It floods. That is why the coming moment will feel larger than a simple confession. It will feel like release, like arrival, like two people finally stepping into a truth that has hovered between them for far too long. But before that happens, something else must occur first. A final sign. A final moment of clarity. A final push that removes the last trace of hesitation from their heart. Because even now, even with all this feeling, a small part of them still wonders, what if I am wrong? What if they do not feel it too? What if I ruin what already exists between us? Those doubts are the last barrier standing. And yet barriers like that rarely survive forever. Soon, something will happen, perhaps small to everyone else, yet enormous to them, that will make hesitation impossible. A glance, a conversation, A moment of unexpected closeness. A sign from you they cannot ignore. Something subtle, but undeniable. When that happens, it will be over. Not the connection, the hiding, the silence, the pretending. Because once they receive that final confirmation, however small it may be, they will stop fighting themselves. They will come toward you with everything they have been holding back. And when they do, the truth they reveal after that first confession, the secret they have never dared say aloud to anyone, will explain why this love has consumed them so completely. Because their feelings go beyond missing you, beyond wanting you, beyond wondering about you. They have already imagined an entire future with you, and when they finally admit that part, you will understand just how serious their heart truly is. But that revelation is still waiting in the next breath of this story. There is a truth even deeper than love, and it is this: when someone begins to imagine a future with you before they have even secured a present with you, their feelings have moved far beyond fleeting emotion. That is the secret your person has guarded most carefully. Not merely that they care for you, not merely that they think about you, but that somewhere in the privacy of their heart, they have already pictured entire chapters of life with you woven into them. They have imagined ordinary mornings made beautiful simply because you were there. They have imagined conversations that stretch late into the night because neither of you wants the moment to end. They have imagined sharing victories with you first, reaching for you instinctively when life becomes overwhelming, building quiet routines that feel sacred because they are shared. They have imagined what it would feel like to stop wondering, and finally call you theirs. That is how deeply this has reached. And the reason they have hidden that truth for so long is simple: because dreaming that far ahead about someone is vulnerable in a way few things are. It means your heart has already traveled somewhere your reality has not yet gone. It means losing the possibility would hurt before it ever began. It means hope itself becomes frightening. So your person kept those visions to themselves. They smiled through ordinary conversations while secretly imagining extraordinary futures. They acted composed while their heart was building a life in places their mouth was too afraid to mention. They pretended this connection was manageable while inside them it had already become meaningful enough to shape tomorrow. But hearts can only contain so much unsaid truth before they begin demanding release. That release is near now. Because the more they imagine life with you, the more impossible it becomes to accept a future where they never tell you. They are starting to realize something profound. Silence may protect them from immediate vulnerability, but it also threatens the very future they secretly long for. And once a person understands that their fear may be the only thing standing between them and the life they desire, fear begins losing its power. That is the shift happening inside them. They are no longer asking whether confession is risky. They are asking whether staying silent would be the greater regret. And deep down, they know the answer. The greater pain would not be hearing no. The greater pain would be never knowing. The greater pain would be watching life move forward while wondering if everything could have changed had they simply been brave enough once. So their heart is hardening against fear now. Not in coldness, in courage. The kind of courage born when longing finally outweighs hesitation. And if you could hear the thoughts that move through them lately, you would understand just how close they are to acting. Their mind returns constantly to one question: if I tell them everything, what if this becomes real? Notice that they are no longer fixated only on rejection. Part of them is now allowing themselves to imagine success. To imagine your face softening when the truth is spoken. To imagine your eyes revealing that maybe, just maybe, you have felt this too. To imagine the relief of discovering they were not alone in this connection. That possibility has become their quiet source of hope. Because for all their fear, something within them keeps insisting this story was never meant to remain unfinished. There is a reason you continue crossing each other's mind. A reason the connection never fully fades. A reason distance has not erased what was felt. A reason silence has only intensified the truth instead of weakening it. Some bonds are not loud when they begin. They unfold slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, until one day both hearts realize something extraordinary has been growing beneath the surface all along. That is what has happened here. And now, your person stands at the edge of a moment that will define everything. Soon they will choose. Not in imagination. Not in theory. Not someday. Soon. A real moment. A real conversation. A real confession. And when it happens, understand this. They will not come to you halfway. They have carried these feelings too long for half-truths now. They have hidden too much to pretend casually. They have dreamed too deeply to speak lightly. When they finally open their heart, it will be complete. They will tell you the truth of the letter, the truth of the silence, the truth of the nights they missed you without explanation, the truth of the future they secretly imagined, the truth of how no matter how hard they tried to move on, their soul kept returning to yours. And after they confess all of that, there is one final question they plan to ask you. A question they have built entire fantasies around. A question simple in wording, yet life-changing in meaning. A question that could transform this connection from hidden possibility into undeniable reality. They have imagined asking it while their voice shakes. They have imagined the silence afterward. They have imagined your answer more times than they can count. Because once that question is spoken, there is no returning to how things were before. Everything changes after it. The air changes. The connection changes. The future changes. And the question they are preparing to ask, the one waiting just beyond their confession, is the question that will reveal whether this was only their secret love story, or the beginning of yours together. But that moment, that question, belongs to what comes next.